Hey guys, Todd Anderson here with another Magic Online video for you. Today we're going to be playing a classic, is what I like to call it. This is an updated version, I suppose, of one of my old favorites, the Fury of the Horde Griselbrand deck. Now, we've seen a lot of versions of this deck crop up over the last year, featuring stuff like Nourishing Shoal, thanks to Bob Wong out of Richmond, Virginia, I believe. That deck looked really cool. I like the cut of its jib, if you will. Nourishing Shoal plus Worldspine Worm, gave the deck a lot of free life points to kind of combo out with Griselbrand and do some really weird stuff. But honestly, I wasn't really a huge fan of all of the excess, garbage type cards. And I'm not trying to use garbage as an insult term, but I mean, when you're playing stuff like Manamorphose, Worldspine Worm, Nourishing Shoal, you just end up having a lot of these cards in your deck that don't really help you accomplish what the deck is trying to do. Whereas this version that I'm going to be playing today is going to be focused around Fury of the Horde as opposed to Nourishing Shoal in an effort to just compact the deck a little bit. Now, I'm under the impression that this deck is pretty schizophrenic in what it's trying to do, and the goal should be to make it more consistent as opposed to less consistent. And maybe the Nourishing Shoal version is more consistent because it plays stuff like Knight's Whisper. It has a little bit more scrying and stuff like that with Black, or what's it called, Temple of Malice. But I think you just have way too much nonsense in the deck. And so we compacted that into basically just 4 Fury of the Horde. We have a lot of cards already in our deck that, are red and have some sort of utility. I think the blue in the deck is pretty important, both for card selection. We get some loots off of Izzet Charm. And I want to try something new in Jace Vryn's Prodigy. Now, it is possible that Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which won't really pop up well in the deck builder for some reason under the picture viewer on the left here, right above me. I think that card is good, but it might just be worse than Merfolk Looter. Especially because we have Emrakul in the sideboard, or sorry, Emrakul is one of our big threats in the main deck, as opposed to, something like Obsidian or, some legend that doesn't shuffle stuff back into your deck. And I could see a couple of times happening where I loot with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, and I'm stuck having to pitch this Emrakul, which kind of shuffles away this Gorya's Vengeance that I pitched earlier. Something like that could happen. But I don't know. For the most part, I think Jace helps you fight through counter spells. It helps you fight through discard. It allows you to have not an engine of looting, but just something that can loot a time or two and help you find the pieces of the combo you need, while also providing you an outlet to put those pieces into the place where they need to be. One interesting note is that Jace is not Snapcaster Mage. The backside does let you play the alternate cost of Fury of the Horde. Not sure that matters. It might come up. You never know. But that is a thing. Basically, you can play alternate cost of cards with Jace Vryn's Prodigy's flip side, whereas you can't with Snapcaster Mage because Jace's minus is much different from Flashback, is the main difference. So, rest of the deck, if you want to take a look, we got Faithless Looting, Izzet Charm to help discard our guys. Gorya's Vengeance brings them back, gives them haste, lets them hit pretty hard. Alternate source of putting creature into play. We have 2 Through the Breach. We don't have that many lands, but we do have 4 Simian Spirit Guides, which can let us cast Through the Breach, pretty early if we draw 1 or 2 of them. Older versions of the deck I played had Pentad Prism and 4 Through the Breaches, which let us cast it much more quickly. But with Jace Vryn's Prodigy, I think the deck is a little more consistent so that we don't need to worry about keeping stuff in our hand too often. And it just allows us to function on fewer lands in play in general. Now, Thoughtseize is in the deck as a means of disruption for the opponent, but if you read closely, you'll see it says target player reveals their hand, so you can technically target yourself. Excuse me. And there are going to be times where you can Thoughtseize yourself, put either Griselbrand or Emrakul into the graveyard, and then use your Gorya's Vengeance to bring them back into play. So Every now and then, Thoughtseize is a way for you to unlock your giant monster from your hand, but for the most part, it's just gonna take your opponent's best card and hope that it's good enough. Now, the strange part of this deck, and one of the things I wanted to try out, is the sideboard. If you take a look, there's a whole lot of weird stuff going on. We got 4 Lightning Bolt, 2 Deathmark, 3 Snapcaster Mage. Now, this little mini package right here is just going to be, hopefully, a way to help beat creature-based decks that might have access to some sort of hateful card after sideboard, such as Rest in Peace. Even Relic of Progenitus is pretty annoying. And I felt like, Snapcaster Mage, Lightning Bolt, Deathmark, these cards could just buy us some time to maybe grind through the hate card, or maybe just fine through the breach. Now, when we board into this stuff, we usually want to bring in PN Karan Nalaar as well. Now, it's going to be pretty rare that you bring back PN Karan with Goryo's Vengeance, but you can, to make 2 more Thopters and attack for 2, which not a huge deal, but you can do that. But if we do transition into that style of deck, we're going to be using Goryo's Vengeance and our Fatties primarily as a means to either control our opponent's board or draw a lot of cards. In the instance that we do bring those cards in, it's likely we're going to be trimming on stuff like Fury of the Horde, maybe even through the Breach, and likely some number of Simian Spirit Guides, or if Thoughtseize is bad in the matchup, maybe some Thoughtseizes. We do have 2 Dispel and 2 Thoughtseize in the sideboard, so when we want to go a little harder on the combo, maybe have a little disruption for the opponent, we have access to that. Dispel is really good against other counterspell-based decks, things that might have Remand, Mana Leak, Cryptic Command, Spell Pierce, Spell Snare, Dispel of their own, stuff like that. So access to a couple of those I think is good. Yeah, I'm not going to lie, guys. This deck might be great. It might be pretty bad. This is an experiment of sorts, and I'm really hoping... Oh, wow. I didn't even realize that you guys couldn't see all the sideboard. I'm sorry. Yeah, I mean, you heard me talk about it, but I apologize for that. I was not aware that you could not see everything. Yeah, sideboard. 4 Lightning Bolt, 2 Deathmark, 2 Dispel, 2 Thoughtseize, 3 Snapcaster, 2 PN Karan. That's it. So we have this weird alternate sideboard where we can board into a Grixis control style deck. I'm not sure if it'll actually work. It might though, and if it does, that's great. And if it doesn't, then we'll go back to the drawing board. Anyway, that's going to be all for the Decktech, guys. We'll be right back with the first match in just a minute.